Hey, greetings, Hotep, everybody. On this particular segment, what I want to do is that I just want to take the time to pay homage, give out a little bit of credit to where credit is definitely due to different particular authors that have inspired me in my journey as far as learning and as far as, on this path of spirituality. Um, some of these people are living, some of these people may be dead. However, I feel like it's important that I definitely offer this information to you guys, people that watch my videos, because I realize people are thirsty out there and there's so much knowledge out there, but with the internet and with spirituality becoming very pop and people becoming very popular on spirituality, we're starting to get away from, I guess, citing our sources and pointing ones in a particular direction so that they can learn more on their own. And we are getting more into being gurus, and everybody has their own philosophy and things of that nature, and that's fine because we have to live out our life purpose and we have to live out our karma. And it may be your karma to be a guru or a spiritual leader or whatever the case may be, but at some point you have to kind of like cite your sources, and just in case people stop, I guess you can say, looking into your information, you can point them into a direction where they can find more information. So I've always looked at myself as a beacon of light, just a particular person that has studied a lot of information, but not just studied a lot of information. I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of people. I mean, I've been involved in different organizations and groups and been a community activist since I was at the tender age of 16 years old. So, I've been out there and I've done a lot. So for me, it's not all about just knowledge as far as like what I do, just to get the listener acquainted with what I do. It's not all about just dropping all this wisdom and giving you all this knowledge and all the things of that nature, but it's about also um, painting my story and using my story as an inspiration for other people. I'm all about inspiring people. So I look at myself as more of an artist, more so than this big time lecturer or doctor or or guru or whatever the case may be. Now I do consider myself a teacher because we're always teaching. We're always teaching even when we aren't speaking. We're teaching. So I do consider myself a teacher. Um, Another thing I want to say, this is just kind of prelude to the video. It won't be too long, but another thing I want to say is that a lot of people come into information about the occult, and they may be coming from coming from college type of background, or coming from a background of corporate, very structured, linear left brain background, and when they get into hearing a lot of this information, they kind of try to write off a lot of researchers and scholars out there that talk a lot about the occult, things of that nature, as being off or having problems or being special or retarded, or crazy. And that's just because of the fact that this information is very new, even though it's very ancient. It's actually ancient wisdom, but it's very new in this particular society. So with that, you have a lot of people that disagree because it's something that they've never heard before. It's new information. So resistance is always going to be the first defense mechanism for someone that's rooted in the old world teaching. That's just what it always comes down to, what it boils down to. But at the end of the day, you can't write off a person and say that they're crazy because they may be talking about things that you don't understand. You can't write them off and say that, because at the end of the day, like one of my great teachers taught me, which was Elijah Muhammad in this particular instance, states that he states that everyone is crazy. It's just that some know how to control it better than others. So at the end of the day, you could say craziness really just comes down to chaos, like from a metaphysical perspective. And saneness or groundedness, saneness in this society is equated to being grounded or rooted, and that's rooted in order or structure. So the first law of the universe is chaos, and then the second law of the universe is order, in that particular order. That's the synchronicity. So chaos has to start first. So you have to kind of like go crazy to find yourself in a new world, which means going crazy in the sense of just going against the grain and doing things that you may not have dreamed of or imagined, yourself doing when you were in your old mind frame, so that you can find yourself and become rooted in the new energy. Eventually, you do have to get organized and get structured, but chaos first and then order. So let me go ahead and get right into it. I want to go ahead and get right into stating a few authors and people that I deem to be dear to me, that helped me on my path, and I just want to pass on to you guys. Now, many people that have been following me for a while, you may have heard me talk about these people in different instances. You may have watched different videos where I've spoken to these people. Some of you know that I've held up and cited a lot of books and things that you could research on your own. But this particular video, I don't have all the books around me and things of that nature right now, so I can't show you all of their books. But every person that I'm going to name, I have thoroughly read at least one or two of their books, if not more. And I'll try to cite some of their books as I go through the list in order. So I want to start off with speaking on some scholars that are deceased, that have maybe have passed away, or whatever the case may be, have passed on to the other side, and we'll start with them. And these are people that I look up to. You can almost say these are people that I revere. These are people that I consider honorable, to help me on my path. And I want to start with, of course, I have to start with I have to start with this in the synchronicity of how I learn things. I'll just let you know that. So it's not about favoritism or, and things of that nature. It's just that I'm going to start with the first particular person that inspired me. That was, someone that wrote books outside of the Bible, of course, that wrote books that I felt like helped me on my journey and my path. And I'll start in that order. And one particular person I've already named was my first inspiration as far as written books. It was Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad inspired me. He's written a lot of books. A lot of it, of course, you can kind of say like it's sci-fi or it's not backed by research. But Elijah Muhammad was kind of like an artist himself. He was kind of like a poet in a way. And you can almost say he was even kind of like a philosopher, where he wrote a lot of information that he learned because he was a Mason. He was initiated into Masonry. A lot of people may not agree with that, but that's my research, and that's what I know to be true. So he was a Mason, so he couldn't really talk about a lot of things outright because of the way Masonry is designed. If you tell certain secrets, there's this price to pay or whatever the case may be, and you take these certain oaths and you're under these obligations. So he told a lot of stuff and revealed a lot of secrets out of Masonry through coded information. Kind of almost like the way the Bible talks about things. Masons understand the Bible on a deeper level. Some Masons. A lot of Masons don't have a clue. But some Masons understand the Bible on a deeper level, but it's coded information. You have to understand how to read the code. You can get this book called The Bible Code that will help you out with that, and then you'll understand how to crack the code and then see what they're really talking about in the Bible. So Elijah Muhammad, he wrote his books in that same fashion, in that same format. So that's why I respect him, is because of he knew a lot of things, but he had to teach people. You got to remember, he taught people that didn't go to college. He taught people that couldn't even read, a lot of them. I mean, I've met a lot of them. People, I've met people in his family and everything, and it's like he taught people that came from nothing, and didn't have no philosophical background. So you guys have the internet and stuff like that nowadays. So it's like, even when you drop out of school, you still have an edge over a lot of people. But Elijah Muhammad, he came from nothing. He started from scratch and taught people that didn't know nothing, taught them how to read, and then taught them the truth, if you will. A lot of his books that are so-called published weren't published by him. That's another thing I want to point out. He was more so a lecturer, and what people did was that they took his lectures and transcribed them into a book format. So I will point that out. He has a lot of books, but like I said, they all come from like lectures, most of them. So that would be my first particular person that I will speak about. And then going on into, once I began to learn more, and I got into learning more about, I guess you could say, metaphysics, my inspiration became Aleister Crowley. A lot of people know I talk a lot about Aleister Crowley, and you may not agree with him. You may not agree with a lot of things he talked about. He wrote a lot of books. a lot of books that he put out. You can Google his name, and a lot of his books will come up. He worked in cahoots with a particular person on the Necronomicon book. He talked a lot about how to properly do rituals and things of that nature. And he was inspired by another particular person that I'll name here, who is Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky is very famous for coming up with this movement called Theosophy. She was a part of the Theosophical Society and one of the particular founders of that. And she is the true founder of the goddess energy. All this stuff that you guys are talking about right now. See, it's funny when you read a lot of these people, you may be like, these people was alive like in the 1800s. How is this going to be helping me right now, though, around Hotep? Like, I don't understand that. But the thing is that these people were talking about stuff that's becoming more popular now. Back then, it wasn't as popular, but everything that you guys are talking about in the conscious community, she was talking about that stuff. I mean, you got books like Isis Unveiled and things of that nature. I mean, all of this stuff, these are old books that were influenced by her, but this is stuff that she talked about a long time ago that's becoming popular now. So to understand the goddess energy, you can get into researching her. Now, another particular person that I'll jump to as far as on a, I guess you can say, nationality perspective, and not only that, but from more of a spiritual perspective, and a person that I deem to be definitely a prophet for real, from my understanding of what a prophet truly is, will have to be Noble Drew Ali. You have to research Noble Drew Ali if you want to get into understanding. And he only transcribed the Circle 7 book, and maybe people say it came from the Aquarian Gospels of Levi, the Aquarian Gospels of Levi, which is another book, and they say that the Circle 7 really he just basically read that book and kind of just rewrote it and changed a few things around the X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, I was, a part of his movement, and, partook in a few, you can deem initiations or things of that nature, his movement. So I know that there is a lot more to Noble Drew Ali than what people fail to realize. I mean, even just looking at some of his sayings, things that he said that would come true a long time ago came true. So you gotta definitely research him and get into understanding him, as far as not only was he spiritual, but he taught you a lot about civics and understanding how to carry yourself as a spiritual person in this government, because there's a proper way to carry yourself if you truly are a spiritual person. There's a certain way that you're supposed to carry yourself. And I talk a lot about that on other videos, so I won't go into that here. So that's why I have to cite him. Another particular person when it comes to astrology, someone that I deem is definitely one of my teachers when it comes to astrology, is Walter Berg. Have to give shout out to Walter Berg, because everything I talk about as far as 13 Signs Astrology, which is the name of this YouTube channel and the name of my website, came from his research. This man was alive back in the 1940s. He's not from America, so I happen to be from America, and I have interacted with particular individuals that are from his community and his group, but his research is impeccable, because he really is the one that came up with the 13 sign system. Even though nobody can really invent an astrology system, the only thing he did was that gave you scientific proof as to where the sun and the planets actually were versus where you think they are, which is what Western is about. Western astrology is about where you think the planets are. Walter Berg teaches you where the planets are actually transiting in real time. You can Google him. He's written several books and has worked in the comic industry and has done some stuff, and on an artistic level too as well, which a lot of astrologers actually do. Another particular person that I'll have to pay homage to, even though I'll be honest, I've not read any of his books. I don't know if he has any books, but I've just studied his movement from more like on the internet and things of that nature, would have to be Marcus Garvey. And as you guys just be patient, you get into this, you're going to see that I have studied a lot of diverse information. I'm not limited, to like a person's color or race or whatever the case may be. It's about the information and what helped me on my path. And Marcus Garvey, gotta send a shout out to Marcus Garvey. Man came from Jamaica. moved up to like the New York area, was really the first person to integrate economics into a national system. This man was a businessman. Marcus Garvey was. He owned a lot of businesses. A lot of people don't realize that. Very astute when it came to organizing people on an economic level and not just rallying. So you got a lot of people like you got movements, and I'm not knocking the Black Lives Matter and different things like that. You do what you do, but I want to see you guys organize more on an economic level. I'll do what I can do to even help if I see that on the economic level, not just talking and going and getting mad and jumping on these news networks and all of that stuff. See, that's what Marcus Garvey. You got to study Garvey. A lot of you guys haven't even these for black nationalists out there. You haven't even studied Garveyism. Just look into it. You don't really probably even know who he was. I could tell you more about him, but this is where Elijah Muhammad and even Norbert Ali and them were inspired from his business savvy, his business acumen. So got to study Garveyism. Jumping back into the astrology world, another particular person that I would cite for you guys as far as a source to get into for people that are into the astrology aspect would be Barbara Handclough. Barbara Handclough is an impeccable astrologer. Talks a lot about alchemy. She talks a lot about astrology from a perspective. I believe she's into the Western system, but what you got to remember about Barbara Handclough, she's a metaphysician. So when I cite astrologers, the thing I'm going to point out here is that when I cite astrologers, the things of that nature, I don't just cite people that wrote these type of astrology books where it's like, you got all this information about all the constellations, you got all this information about all the houses and how the planets interpret in each house and all that type of stuff. That's cool. A lot of people can do that. That's a lot easier to do, but I like people that are into like this solar biology movement. The solar biology movement. And you can actually, that's another author I want to cite, but I forgot his name. I just looked it up and forgot already, but he has the last name Hiram, Hiram. Hiram. I forgot his first name, but Hiram, this is just on a sidebar, wrote a book called Solar Biology that's really good that I've read as well. And this is what Barbara Handclough, she kind of came from his school of thought. And Barbara Handclough talks a lot about how, different astrological energies, the story behind them. And she wrote a lot of even you can consider it like fictional work even based upon the astrological influences that are coming to the planet. So she's into talking about astrology, like really talking about it without talking about it. Because that's true astrology, when you don't have to talk about or say the name Aries, but be talking about all about Aries. Or you don't have to say the name of Fucus and be talking all about a Fucus. That's true astrology. She knows how to demonstrate that type of stuff. So you got to pay homage. She got a lot of books out too, so you got to look into Barbara Handclough. Of course, as you guys know, jumping back into more, I guess you could say, of metaphysics and the occult even, I would have to definitely cite Dr. Malachi Z. York. Of course, a lot of you may not agree with his background or whatever you said happened or the stuff that happened. I'm not all about all of that, his personal life. I'm just talking about the books that he transcribed and wrote. And this man, the reason why I cite him is because for, a melanated being, and this is for these melanated beings out here, he spoke more languages than any of these teachers out here. Malachi Z. York is fluent in many languages. So it's very important that you study him because he was able to transcribe the Sumerian text from their original by reading the plates. They see when they found the Sumerian tablets a while ago, him and Zachariah Stitcher, from my research, are the only two people that really interpreted them from their language. Him and Zachariah Stitcher were the only two people that knew enough Hebrew and knew enough of the Metu Neter, which is the Egyptian language, to be able to go into the Sumerian language and transcribe what they were saying and put them into English. Dr. Malachi put out the Holy Tablets, which is what his most popular book to me, and where a lot of my research about extraterrestrials and things of that nature has come from. But Zachariah Stitchin, I have to say him on the side of Dr. Malachi Z. York, because he talks about it too as well. I think he's from Russia. And Zachariah Stitchin is very important too as well, because of the fact that he didn't necessarily write this into a scripture format the way my cousin York did, but he wrote a lot of books about Enki and helped you understand what was going on, predicated upon him being able to translate information from the holy tablets, or I'm sorry, from the Sumerian tablets, and putting them into a book format so that we can understand that those particular people that can't speak these languages. So when you get into researching a lot of ancient stuff, you got to know the language. I'll say that too here. If you really want to understand what what the Egyptians believed in and things of that nature, it'll be better that you learn how to speak their language first. And that'll take me to another one of my favorite cats, who is Ra-Un Nefer of the Asar Aset Society. He's alive still. And I know I said I was going to be talking about people. And so is Barbara Handclough. And so is Dr. Malachi York. So I know I've kind of mixed up certain people that are deceased, and I said I was going to start with deceased people, but we're getting into the living champions right now. And Ra-Un Nefer put out the Metu Neter, books 1, 2, and 3. Very good, interesting research. Very interesting research, taking you into the thoughts and the philosophy of the Egyptians, letting you know that the Kabbalah and what Israel Regardie, who's another good author that wrote this book on the Kabbalah, where Israel Regardie got his information from was actually from the Metu Neter, because the whole Kabbalah system comes from the Metu Neter, the Egyptian Metu Neter system. It's more ancient. And you have to know these things or whatever when you research. It's not wrong with Kabbalah, because I love Kabbalah. That's something that I really need to get more into. But I've studied more of the Metu Neter because I know that's the root of it. So definitely got to get into that. I've cited Walter Berg, not just getting into some other side authors and people that are living that I really respect their research, that are even out here right now teaching, people like Drunvalo Melchizedek, or Melchizedek, some people will call him Drunvalo Melchizedek. Really good. Been teaching since the 70s, still out there, older brother, like I said, he's about 70-something years old, I believe, still teaching, got videos up on YouTube you can check out. Got to get into him as far as metaphysics. He teaches you a lot about Atlantis, understanding those things. So you got to get into Drunvalo. Definitely a good, interesting figure out there. Another particular person that I really respect is, I've read only a little bit of her information because I feel like it's definitely good for women, and I believe men can benefit from it too, but I'm still trying to get more into my feminine aspect of myself, so I haven't read all of her books. But Queen Afua, gotta check out Queen Afua. She's really good, researcher when it comes to talking about women and things of that nature, and the feminine spirit as well. And I believe she comes from the same place that Madame Blavatsky comes from. I was telling you about the start of the Theosophical Society. So this is another person to check out. Other really good authors out there that I could say these are people that are champions. There's someone else I want to name out there, just to name a few, but I think that's going to kind of like really sum it up as far as people that I feel like have done a lot of research, as far as people that I've studied on my journey, the people that you can get into. I mean, of course, there's many others out there that I didn't name. And if I didn't name you, it has no offense against you or anything like that. These are just people that I've researched and people that I've got into. And these are a lot of people that I'm trying to name, or people that aren't really just, like lecturers and stuff like that. I'm trying to name people that have actually written books and done a lot of research. And the last one came to me. Glad that I kind of paused for a minute. I have to talk about this particular person, but particular individual wrote a lot of books on the Moors and things of that nature, and he wrote a lot of information on teaching us about African culture, African history, how it merges with Native American history, is Ivan Van Sertima. Gotta check him out. If you don't check out anybody else, actually, that I named, you got to check him out. I want you to check out everybody else I named, because everybody I named, they all got about at least 9 books or something like that. And they all coming from different perspectives. So, this is why this video will be interesting, because I'm talking about people that's coming from many different angles and perspectives. But Ivan Van Sertima, he backs up all the information like a lot of stuff that I talk about the Moors and the experiments that went down where women were first and, create men and all that type of stuff, that I'm not going to get too much into on this video. He has research backing all that up. He's deceased. He died recently, but he has research backing all of that up. And another person I wanted to name that I'll shut down after that is Dr. Ben, Dr. Yosef Ben Jacquemin, I believe his last name is Dr. Ben. If you put his name, I think it's Yosef Ben Jacquemin is his last name, and you can Google that and put his name in. I've read a little bit of his work too as well. He's Egyptian. If you want to study Egypt and know a lot about Egypt and things of that nature, you got to get into studying Dr. Ben. So that's going to sum it up and do it for me. I mean, I've given you basically cited books based upon what I've learned from astrology, all of this nationalism, and and stuff like that, and economics, and Stuart Wow. See, I can keep going on and on. There's so many different people. Stuart Wow teaches a lot about economics and the metaphysics of money and things of that nature. So you got to get into him. Got to get into researching Stuart Wow. I believe the most popular book that I like that he wrote a lot of them was Tick Tock, the clock or something like that. When he's talking about the relationship that money has to time and things of that nature, how to manifest more resources for yourself. He teaches, like The Secret came out. You got to remember this. The Secret came out after Stuart Wow was teaching, way before The Secret was out. So they got all the stuff they talk about, I learned from Stuart Wow. So I'm trying to cite you sources of people that have been teaching for a long time, if you notice too. Like all these people that I've named have been out here and been doing work for years. Even some of the ones that are still here now, they didn't just pop up yesterday type of stuff. So I'm trying to give you really good, solid sources. So check him out, Stuart Wow as well. So it's just so much knowledge out there. And to cite some of my sources on sovereignty and where I learned a lot of that from, I urge you. Now my thing on sovereignty and how I learned, about that type of stuff on my journey really didn't come from one person or a grandmaster teacher or anything like that. This came from a collection of research. This is one day something that I want to get into writing multiple books on that perspective, because there's really not one good person, to be honest with you, out there that sums it all up outside of, to me, from my perspective, Jordan Maxwell. If you want, as far as like a one go-to person, if you want to hear from like a person, check out Jordan Maxwell. You should help Jordan Maxwell too. I want to say that too, because I've heard that he's having some financial problems, and he's a true sovereign, man. You got to remember that. And they've tried to hijack and took over his business, and it's this guy faking like he's Jordan Maxwell. And if Jordan Maxwell is somewhere out there or whatever, I'm looking for you, man, because I want to put you on this channel. Like, that's one person I want to interview, because the young people need to know more about him, and I want to interview him and just, chop it up with Jordan Maxwell. I mean, he got a lot of knowledge and information. I really respect him a lot, actually, as far as living teachers. But somebody took his identity, and his story is so similar to mine, because I got a lot of stuff going on with this channel in the background that I'm going to do a video soon talking about. Some people, like, I'm not going to go into it here, but soon I'm going to be talking about. But man, his story is so similar, but he's a true sovereign. You gotta check out Jordan Maxwell. But outside of him, and again, Jordan Maxwell, if you watch this video, reach out to me, man. I want to interview you. I want to put you out there on the channel. If somebody knows his direct phone number, I don't want his email or whatever. I want to speak to him directly on the phone. Shoot it to me through an email or something like that, But I don't want to, like I said, get into like just emailing him back and forth, because it might not be him. I want to make sure it's him. But yeah, if I can get to him, I'll definitely want to get him on the channel really soon. But Jordan Maxwell, you want to check him out. But also, where I got a lot of my information too is from about sovereignty, came from some people that worked with Jordan Maxwell that were in the temple, and I got to send a shout out to my brother Adamu. Got to send a shout out to my brother Adamu L. A lot of you know who he's an underground king. He hasn't written a lot of books and things of that nature yet. He got it in him, what I'm saying, but he hasn't written a lot of books and information yet. He's a younger cat, a little bit older than myself. Still growing, and things of that nature. But he's helped Jordan Maxwell and others with the think tank from Cracking the Code, the book that was put out about sovereignty called Cracking the Code, which came out in the 90s of which some of those tactics don't necessarily work now because things have changed in the economy. And that's the thing about sovereignty. You can research a lot of the older stuff, but they change stuff around in the legal system. So I will definitely pay homage to him because he taught me a whole lot. Him and Yanel Bey. Yanel Bey taught me a whole lot. So I'm just going through sources. Some of you may know these cats from street. These are street dudes. These two dudes. That name, like, when I say street dudes, they teachers and all that, but their background is kind of similar to mine, and they were more in the streets than even I was, type of thing, and changed themselves and became very versed in this type of stuff. Like people that know about Jerry Lewis Bay and them. That's the type of background. These people ran with Jerry Lewis Bay. If you know Jerry Lewis Bay, you know what I'm talking about. This guy's incarcerated, at the time right now, and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, knowledge is knowledge. He's written a book. Check out his book. I've read some of it when back in the day when Black Planet was out, but I didn't get a chance to read all of it and things of that nature. But when you start researching sovereignty, be ready to research it because that's when they see you getting into that, and that's when the government wants to start watching you. So you can't be scared, man. Sovereignty is really for the true spiritual gangsters. Really, that's what inspired me to make videos like that, because you can't be scared when you get into that type of information. Like this is legendary. These are the legends. The people that came from the streets and then changed their lives and got into the world of scholarship. People like Clarence 13X and people like that, who he is, came up with the 5% lessons. So, I've read a lot, man. I've definitely read over 300 books, like easily. I'm talking about books from astro travel to just sovereignty, all kind of levels of metaphysics, alchemy, Kabbalah, you name it. I've been into it or whatever. All the books on the truth about Christianity and Jesus. Jesus, the Last of the Pharaohs by Ralph Ellis. That's another book I always tell people to get. Great book. One of my favorites, actually. At the top of the list for Christians, you need to get that. Jesus, the Last of the Pharaohs by Ralph Ellis. I'm just dropping books right now, man. Like, just, stuff that I've read. Nothing serious or whatever. But back to sovereignty. A lot of what I've learned about that came from dictionaries. And you would say, dictionaries? How you going to learn from some dictionary? Easy. You're going to get most of your knowledge about sovereignty. You need to get you a good Black's Law dictionary and a good Barron's banking dictionary. And I hope this stuff that I hold dear to me, more so than everything else. Metaphysics is cool, but all of these metaphysical teachings, you got to remember the bankers and the judges know them. You may laugh at me for talking about Islam and citing stuff from the Quran and all that, but guess what? The judge that you stand in front of when you go to court, he read the Quran, he read the Bible, he read the Kabbalah, he read all this stuff that I'm talking about. The judges do. I've chopped it up with some judges and had some interesting conversations. Very interesting conversations. I respect judges a lot, man. They know a whole lot, So all of that, you need to get you a good dictionary if you want to understand the law. You need to get the Constitution for the United States of America. You also need to get a constitution for your particular state that you live in, and then you need to start researching treaties. That's how you're going to understand sovereignty. Those are the jewels to get you to understand the sovereignty. That's how you research. You have to be a good researcher to really get the sovereignty. Like I said, there's no one go-to, because everybody has a different way and a different situation. It may not even be for you to become a sovereign. Maybe you just want to know about it. So I'm not telling you, this is not something that you get into because it's cool. This ain't no religion. This is something that will find you. If it's good for you to be in us as a full-fledged sovereign, then you get into that. I say just focus on spiritual sovereignty, studying astrology, numerology, things of that nature. And if sovereignty finds you, it'll find you. Because, like I said on one video before, and like we learned in the 5% Nation, form follows function. Again, shout out to Clarence 13X. Learned so much from that man. But form follows function, which means that you just start doing what you're supposed to do, studying, researching, and exercising, and getting your mind right. What you're supposed to be doing on a deeper level, your life mission and purpose, and how you're going to give back, that'll find you. Let that find you. Period. So when you get into like studying all these books and stuff like that, just remember that. Let it just all come together and unfold. As like Noble Drew Ali taught us, as man unfolds, his God unfolds. So the more wiser you get, the more information about God and your understanding of God, your highest ideal, will begin to unfold. Man's God is his highest ideal, which is in the Aquarian Gospel in Circle 7. So that's going to do it for me. Also, shout out to Supreme Grand Chief E. Branswell Bay. Definitely got to send a shout out to him. Learned a lot from him as well. I don't want to leave anybody out. If I left you out, it wasn't on purpose. Definitely wasn't on purpose. Just a lot in this head, you know. So hopefully that'll get you guys on the journey. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen. I know I said it wasn't going to be long, but you know, hey, it is what it is. I just be out here just going with the energy and going with the flow. So we'll go ahead and get on with my day. I thank you for listening. I thank you for watching. To my next. Peace.